We are here with our materials. You can find a listing of these on my website, howtomaketassels.com. I'm going to briefly go over it before we launch into making a tassel. I have various size skirt boards here. You can see this one's fancy. This one's for a knotted skirt. It's been covered with contact paper. These are just regular. I don't usually cover them with contact paper anymore because I don't usually use the knotted skirt method too much. So these don't get wet, and I like them to be pliable. These are brass sheets that we will use for embellishments in a later video. Some wire and some wire cutters for making the skirt and the ruff. This is the skirt, the ruff, the form, and the cord. You'll find that on my website also. Here's some warped threads that we'll use to make the skirt. We'll talk about warping in another video. Some floss and some sibilia. Now, the reason I make, when I teach classes, the reason I make tassels with sibilia and floss is because it's very inexpensive. And most people want to see if they like something before they spend a whole lot of money on the materials. So you can buy these for a few dollars, $4 or $5, and these are of course about 33 cents a piece, something like that, 40 cents, depending on where you buy them. So that's basically what we'll use. I have another video where I talk about the types of yarns and fibers that are appropriate for tassels that work out really well. Okay, 2 types of scissors. Embroidery scissors with a tassel on them, of course, and some sewing shears which we'll use to cut the bottom. Some different glues for gluing the trim onto the wooden form. We have clear gel tacky glue, which is my favorite glue of all time. It hasn't been around too long, but this is a very versatile glue, very strong. I use it for beading eggs, and I find that it works out great because the beads don't really fall off too often, which has always been a problem with traditional tacky glues. Plus it dries clear and you don't have to pick it out. When I first started making these, I would use tacky glue, and you would have to pick out glue because, you know, if you got too much on there, it would seep through, or if you got too little, then the covering would start to fall off. So this has been a great glue. Here's fast grab tacky glue. If you choose to glue on your ruff or your skirt onto the tassel form, this works really great because you'll want something that picks it up really fast. Here's the spray adhesive. Some people use that on the form when they're wrapping it with the thread. I don't like it myself because it gets very tacky and messy very quickly. So unless you're really good at wrapping the form, and you'll see when we get to that part, that this part right here when you're going on the downslope is really challenging, and if you're working with a glue that's setting up really fast, it becomes quite frustrating. Here's our various wood forms. One of the questions that I'm asked most about is, where do you get the wood forms? Well, you have to be a little bit creative. They don't really make them too readily available for us. These are curtain finials, these larger ones. Those you can find at Lowe's, Home Depot, and places like that. And this is basically just this form, except with that top cut off because I'm going to put a big gold bead there. Here's some that have been custom turned for me, but they're a bit expensive to do that way. I'm looking for a turner. If there's enough interest, a wood turner will make them for a decent price for me, but they like to make them in the thousands because they have to set up their lathes for that particular item, and it's not cost efficient for them to, you know, set up the lathe and the computer just to make 100. So I'm looking into making cast resin forms out of something like this, and we'll talk more about forms in another video. Some various wood shapes. You can be fairly creative about making your form.